Good morning. Let's make sure the mic is on. My name is Jackie Jenkins Scott, and I am interim president of this great institution, Roxbury Community College. We are we are delighted to have you here on our campus, and we're so proud that the mayor, the congresswoman, and former mayor Janey are with us to announce the continued support for free public transportation. And we want to just kick this off with helping you to understand why their advocacy is so important to everyday students and people in our community. So I am pleased to ask two of our students, our trustee student representative, Alberto Castro, and our nursing student, our fabulous nursing student who is going to change nursing for us, Andrea Jonas, will kick us off by just offering a few words of why this is so important in their lives.
Hello, my name's Andrea Jonas. Is
Make
it?
sure the mic is working for you, Andrea.
I don't think it is.
It's on? Can you hear us? Great.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Good morning. Free transportation is important to me because it assists with my day-to-day living, of course. It helps me to be able to save more money so that I can be able to do a lot more. Since I'm a nursing student, it's not always affordable, of course. It's going to take a lot of money, a lot of education, but it just helps with like my day-to-day living. And it helps other people around the communities. Of course, in my communities like Dorchester, Mattapan, Roxbury, when it comes to income, we're not really there yet, like very low income communities. It just helps with like young mothers. It helps us to be able to access grocery stores and places that we can't get to without a car. And it just helps with those just gives us resources to get around. So free transportation is very important to us, and you guys are changing the community by doing this, actually. So you guys are making a big difference. I just want to say that. So thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Alberto.
My name is Alberto Castro. I'm a student at Roxbury Community College. Free transportation helps me and my family. I'm a dad of two, and it's tough even getting around. Any little bit that I could save from even paying for the bus fare or anything that helps towards saving for them. I want a better future for them. It helps to put more money in my pocket, to buy food or for medication or things like that. I'm sorry, I'm a little nervous, but
You're doing great, Alberto.
yeah, but yeah, it definitely helps me and my family. I never thought that I would see it. I'm older, so seeing the free fare, it tells me that the Congresswoman's advocacy and our mayor's advocacy for us is working. We just have to speak up and be with them. That's it.
Thank you, Alberto. Alberto and Andrea said it. Free transportation saves them. It saves lives. It saves communities. And we couldn't have stronger advocates for free transportation than the three incredible leaders you're about to hear from. They said the mayor couldn't do this. When she was running for office, they said she could not do this, that it was a pipe dream. And what happens? Dreams can become reality. So thank you, Mayor Wu, for your dream, your vision. And I am going to turn the mic over to you, and you will introduce our next speakers.
Thank you, Madam President. And thank you so much, Andrea and Alberto. I'm so inspired by you and so excited. We are not just helping people save a few bucks here and there. We're making an investment in the lives that you're going to save, in the difference that you're already making every single day. And we already see that it's worth it. It's worth it. And we're so grateful for you. I'm honored to be here today to celebrate the continuation of work that has been a long time coming, and work that was made possible with the helping hands of many in our community, coalitions of advocates and activists and residents who had come together year after year after year to keep pushing, despite being told it was impossible. And then a mayor who made it happen. Mayor Janey launched the city's very first free bus route, and I'm so grateful. So you'll hear from her next. I wanted just to add a bit of detail, because not only have we been able to expand that and build on her work, we were also able to get the results back of the analysis and the study that was done, because that 6-month pilot was able to run and really tell us in great detail what it meant for families and what the costs and benefits actually were. So in some of the conversations that Andrea and Alberto had with us on the bus, what's clear to me is that every little bit builds on itself. Every little bit that we can put back in people's pocket is adding up quickly, but it also just lifts the burden off of having to think how you're going to, the mental energy, the effort to really try to put all the pieces of your life together. I think any working parent or family member with kids is used to that daily toil of how am I going to get here on time, get back to pick up the kids, get to figure out what's for dinner and how we put that on the table for everyone. And so even talking to Alberto, it's a very familiar feeling that if you have to get all these things done and transportation is an extra cost and a barrier, then you start to ration what you have to do, or you try to just jam things together in ways that are inconvenient. You just make one trip here to school and then try to wait it out until you can time it to then make it back to get the kids, etc. But that's not how your life can fit together in the easiest way. And so I'm very excited that now making those multiple trips to school, to home, to pick up the kids without having to worry about how that'll add up or take away from your ability to pay for food or medicine or rent, that is the ultimate goal here. And that was something that came out in the analysis and the study results. Not only did we help save money for our residents, money that is then directly invested back in our communities and our local small businesses at a really important time, but what we heard loud and clear was that people also just felt so much better about being part of community, about being connected to and able to access everything that Boston has to offer, and not have to worry about that sense of shame, right? If you're in line at the bus already, then you realize actually you don't have enough cash to get on, or actually your card isn't filled up enough to take this ride. That feeling, that additional mental turmoil adds up to a lot, day after day after day, trip after trip. And so, as the three of us have been saying for a long time, knowing from personal experience, riding our buses, riding the T, pushing a big double stroller with 2 babies in it, getting your grandkids and your kids around, trying to make sure that we can get to our obligations and work and everything on time. Public transit is a public good. It is fundamental. And this is a city that has always stepped up for the public good. When Boston does that, when we make an investment in our future and the ways in which we are all connected to each other, we change the course of history. We change the conversation around the country. And we're seeing that with this as well. That cities around the country are looking to Boston and are taking inspiration from what we do. And it's really the collaborations between Boston, Lawrence, Worcester, Brockton here locally that have started to grow our momentum to really show what's possible. Despite many, many years of being told that it might be too hard, too expensive, too complicated, it turns out that when we choose to make an investment in our people, in our residents, and make it so that everyone fundamentally has the right to access every opportunity in Boston, that's how we actually get to a city for everyone. And so this couldn't be more important. I'm so grateful that we have federal funds available for our recovery that we are putting to good use with this. These are the communities along these bus routes have been disproportionately impacted by the pandemic. These are key economic corridors for our city, and this is where we are already starting to see, and we'll just see it amplify, the results of our investments in opening up the opportunities and the jobs and the social activities, the recovery. This benefits the entire city of Boston when our communities have more access to our city. So I'm so honored to pass it on to Mayor Kim Janey, who kicked this all off and has been such a strong partner. We rode the 28 bus together how many years ago now? 4 years ago, pushing for this, and it's an incredible inspiration always to stand by her.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? It is a delight to be here. I want to start by thanking President Jenkins Scott for her hospitality, for her leadership in our city. I'm so grateful to you. I want to thank our students, Andrea and Alberto. They really have told the story. As someone who grew up here in the city, I relied and continue to rely on public transit. I remember my mom, who is here with us today, taking me out on buses and on the train ride, coming into Dudley, and we'd take that little turn, and the train felt like it was going to fall off the tracks. As a young single mom, I relied on public transit, taking my young daughter around, whether to school, whether to parks, whether to doctor's appointments, playgrounds. It is how I had to get to supermarkets. Still to this day, people ask, well, why don't you have a car? I don't own a car because I live in the great city of Boston. Well, I'm temporarily in Cambridge, and I did take the #1 bus to get here from Cambridge, that #1 bus that our Congresswoman rode and told the story of inequities. And that's what this is about. It is about addressing inequities in our city. And we know that they are long-standing. You heard Mayor Wu talk about the disproportionate impact. This issue for me is deeply personal. It is an environmental justice issue, it is an economic justice issue, and it's a racial justice issue. That is why, as mayor of Boston, I was proud to launch the Fare Free 28 bus pilot, to look at how fare free ridership could impact our buses in terms of making them more reliable, that they would run more smoothly and more quickly with all-door boarding, and that this would be a big relief for families in our community who have been hit hard by COVID and were hit hard long before COVID. This was an issue. And so looking at Blue Hill Avenue and the communities of Dorchester, Roxbury, and Mattapan, and making sure that we could offer fare-free transit last year, and that pilot has now been expanded by Mayor Wu to continue the Fare Free 28 bus, to add the 23 bus, and to add the 29 bus. This is a game changer. And you heard why. You heard from students who talk about this in real time and what it means for them and their families. This is so important, and it demonstrates what can happen when we work together, when we work with the advocates, when we work with each other in elected government, when we are making sure that we are doing what is best for our community and those who have been marginalized for far too long. So I couldn't be more thrilled. Mayor Wu pointed out that we rode that 28 bus all the way from Mattapan Station to Ruggles. And it took quite some time because there are folks who want to board the bus who may not have money on their Charlie card, or maybe don't have all the change needed. Or if they do, they're taking time putting the change in. This is a real significant day in the city of Boston, people, that we've done this. The advocacy of our Congresswoman and making sure, and all three of us know what it's like to take public transit and to rely on public transit as a mode of transportation. Our students know what it's like. My mom knows what it's like. And all of the folks that were on that bus that got us here today know what it's like when a bus passes you by because it's too packed. And they come doubled up together at the bus stop and they just pass you by. happens all the time. Makes you late for work. When black riders have to spend 64 more hours on the bus, that is time away from their jobs, time away from their families, time that they're not earning money. This is a real economic, racial justice, and environmental justice issue. I could not be more proud and more thrilled for the leadership of the folks who are standing here in this room, and for the work that we've been able to do together, and for the way that Mayor Wu has championed public transit throughout our city. This is just the beginning, right? I can say these things now. No pressure. I am just so thrilled to stand here in solidarity with my sisters in service who are doing amazing work from the federal resources, from the day-to-day planning to make sure that the residents of the great city of Boston have access and opportunity. And they need that through our fare-free buses and public transit. So I'm just so thrilled to be here to celebrate this day with Congresswoman Pressley and with Mayor Wu and President Jenkins Scott and our students here and all of you. So I don't need to say any more. I think our students summed it up nicely. So I am going to pass the mic to our esteemed Congresswoman. Congresswoman Pressley has represented the 7th Congressional District so well. She is getting resources to our community. She is a strong voice and a strong advocate for the folks of this community. She knows personally, like I do and our students and Mayor Wu, what it means to ride and rely on public transit. And I'm grateful for her partnership. I'm grateful for her leadership and all that she has done in this space. Without further ado, Congresswoman Pressley.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. You know, I love this visual, and if it's telling a story that women are always on the front lines leading, I mean, it's just the truth. And I, too, want to echo the sentiments expressed by Mayor Janey and thank President Jenkins Scott, who has long been an incredible champion both for education and also the public health. And I think that what we're doing here today really is at the intersection of those two issues, which she has championed throughout her life. So we thank you for being our host today. And to Alberto and Andrea, we thank you for sharing your stories because, you know, ultimately, we would not be here were it not for the amplified voices of community who spoke about how critical this need was for them. And as I've said so many times before, the best collaborations are those that are community-driven and government-endorsed and invested in. And so during the pandemic, and given the impact of this pandemic-induced recession, we saw a government at every level being nimble and, you know, onboarding, pun intended, and standing up programming and policies and investments that for decades we've been told were impossible and could never happen. And because of political will and courage, that of Mayor Janey with the 28 bus route, and now we see that legacy continuing in that program and that access being expanded under the leadership of Mayor Wu. I was taken back to a time when I was on the bus, a student at Boston University, going to one of my 3 part-time jobs. And I remember getting on, and I thought I had a certain amount of money that I did not have. And just the community of fellow bus riders, and we've all done this before too, and people saying, I got you. You know, and people digging into their pockets and making sure that I could get where I needed to go. But I also, for a moment, I was emotional because it took me back to the tremendous shame that I felt in that moment. I just needed to get to class. And I took it on as if it was like a moral or character flaw that I didn't have the means. I thought I did. I wasn't trying to, you know, scam or con anybody. I thought I had it, but I didn't. And so there are so many people who feel that this is a moral or character flaw. I remember one of my first jobs in government, and Every African American on that staff who lived in Boston was late for work every single day. And again, we took that on as a moral and character flaw, and as if it was, you know, for just feeding negative stereotypes. And it was not for any lack of, you know, effort or trying. It was about systems. When we talk about racism being structural and systemic, this is what we mean. We weren't all late for work because we didn't get up on time. We were late for work because our transit was not reliable, was not rapid. So what you're seeing here today is policy in action. And it is our job, you know, as people in government, to first and foremost meet the basic needs of people. And this is a basic, essential need. How demoralizing when you don't have equitable access to a basic need. The helplessness that a mother feels that she can't get to child care on time, a father feels to get his children to school on time. An elder to get to a medical appointment, or you know what? This is not just about healthcare appointments and job interviews and jobs and school and child care. This is about people not just calling a city their home, but making a life. And the difference between a city being a place that you call home and that you make a life in, that you have roots in and feel connected and a part of, has everything to do with your ability to navigate it. Everything. You know, were it not for public transit, so many families would not have the opportunity to experience the vibrant arts and culture, you know, in this city, to access our green space and so many other things. So yes, this is about meeting the basic needs of people in the most utility sense. But it is also about that which I just spoke about, the real heartbeat and verve and pulse of a city. And that is true livability, when you can just get from point A to point B. So public transit is a public good, and we have to invest in it and treat it as such. And that is why I'm proud to be a co-founder of the Future of Transportation Caucus, where we affirm that federal funds should not be invested to perpetuate structural and systemic inequities when it comes to transit access, but instead that those federal funds should be spent centering equity, accessibility, sustainability, and connectivity to jobs, to education. And it's also why I'm proud to be a co-author of federal legislation with Senator Markey, the Freedom to Move Act. And it's as simple and as plain as the title of our bill, the freedom to move. Public transit is a public good. And so it is just incredible to be here with these extraordinary women leaders and two extraordinary community members who we are better enabling to bring their contributions to bear to this city, to our Commonwealth, and to our country. So I will end there, but I did want to, for the record, just offer some statistics, some data points here. All of us up here are data nerds, so we like numbers. But I'm also a bit atrophied and I can't remember them all, okay? So I'm going to refer to my notes here. So for the 28 bus route under Mayor Janey, which was initiated as fare-free, bus ridership increased substantially during the pilot, 38% increase since the start of the pilot, 38%. 4,000 additional trips per weekday. I also want to say that that's about our economy, too. This is not just about closing the racial wealth gap, which we must do, and I care about having the most unequal congressional district in our delegation, which is why my campaign centered around that #1 bus ride, where from Harvard Square to Nubian Square, life expectancy dropped by 30 years and median household income by $50,000. So yes, I care about closing that racial wealth gap. But if people are riding, and again, connected to community, they're supporting local business. You know, and they need that as we begin to round the corner in this pandemic, and this recovery from this pandemic-induced recession. So 38% increase since start of pilot, 4,000 additional trips per weekday. 15% of riders said they were new to the 28 pilot. 15%. And then system-wide bus ridership, initially had only been 15%. So anyway, I know today we rolled the 23 and not the 28, but I just wanted to offer those data points as evidence of what is possible. So thank you all for being with us here today.
No questions. Oh. The mayor and the congresswoman and the former mayor are willing to take some questions if there are questions. Yes.
It's just the beginning for a couple of reasons. First of all, is that the 6 months of the bus lined up in some ways with the greatest need right during the pandemic, but it also is a time when people were taking a lot of public health precautions as well and trying wherever possible to stay inside and stay safe and stay protected. And so now, as we're seeing the numbers head in the right direction and we're through the Omicron surge at least, although BA2 is very much still present, we will see people and our economy coming back out. And so I am confident that the numbers will continue to grow. The other important point is that the pilot was for a 6-month period. That was the maximum that the T was willing to, and it took a lot of wrangling and negotiating to even get that period of time. But 6 months is just not enough for people to really rearrange their lives, take on jobs, knowing that they can depend on the transit beyond that period of time, or for businesses to open up with that transit as a reliable part of how they can build their business plans and have employees come in. And so we really fought to build on this work, had to go all the way up to the Secretary of Transportation and the FTA to get an extended period of time. So this 2-year period is really important. We've seen that it has transformational impacts in Lawrence. When you have a longer period of time, people can find out more about the pilot, businesses can make decisions, and we know that this will start to become baked into everyone's day-to-day lives.
Characterize the ridership increase lower than the increase in almost.
I'm sorry, say the last part again, Sean?
They say some of it's just that they're seeing ridership increase across all of them. So they increase
Well, the 28 bus had the highest ridership of any route in the entire city of Boston. And so I think it's undisputed that we saw a jump and boost because once people found out about it, whether it was through school, through classmates, through the local business and bodega who passed on the word, that a number of new people, as the Congresswoman mentioned, did start riding the bus. It's important to have that data. It's important to measure things and make sure we are making progress and understanding how much. But at the end of the day, we have to look beyond the numbers to people. Each and every one of those data points is a family that is working so hard to make everything fit together, to make ends meet, to get to where they need to go, and that we are missing out on often on the potential for everyone to be contributing everything they want to give to our communities because they can't get to that job on time, or they can't make these plans to be with friends because it'll just take too long, and so they're going to just stay at home instead. And so it all builds and feeds on each other, feeds on itself, and every single investment, every additional person is a success in being able to help that family connect to opportunity. But we know that the numbers show that this has worked. It's every pilot that's been run across the country, every system that has introduced fare free service has seen a jump in service, in ridership. And that's the number one thing that we could be doing right now for all of the goals outlined: climate justice, economic justice, racial justice. Charmin on that question,
about Boston City Council hearing that's happening now on the use of stingray technology. by Boston police. Do you have any concerns about that? Because when you were a city councilor, this is not approved in a budget item. Do you have concerns about that? And is it still currently being used, or are you seeing the police have it?
Yep, so this is another example where we see the impact of policymaking. This is an ordinance that's very special because this was an ordinance that Mayor Janey and I, along with Councilor Arroyo, proposed as councilors, and then she was able to sign it on the other side as mayor. So that's been put in place in it was the last year, I don't remember when exactly, last year. And so with that legislation in place and with those policies set, there's now a very clear set of criteria, mechanisms, and process for any new surveillance technology to have use policy, privacy parameters, public knowledge and participation, and council approval.
Still being used though right now?
Everything has to be subject to this policy, so it is not. I will double check with the team, and I'm sure they're talking about this at the hearing right now. But we are following the policy, and so without an approved city council specific use policy, this surveillance technology should not be used. Bob. Yeah, well, some of what I keep saying is that our biggest barrier in Boston is believing that we can't do more. And you heard over and over and over that, Alberto didn't think in his lifetime, as someone who grew up and is now raising kids in Boston, that he would see a day when there was fare free bus service. And so even being able to shift what's possible and then show what it feels like, what it means for your lives, proves the case for investment. And so I don't know if the Congresswoman wants to step in more on her legislation, but we're so grateful that there's momentum at all levels. In the scheme of things, the estimates are a $30 million cost for the entire MBTA system to replace fares from riders. Statewide, it would be a $60 million cost to include all of the regional transit authorities along with that. And that's an investment right back in the pockets of our community members. There's legislation that's been filed at the State House for free bus service. There's legislation that's been championed by our delegation, the Congresswoman and Senator Markey, around federal resources for that. And so we're hoping that as more cities take this on, and as we talk with our surrounding cities as well about bus routes that cut across multiple municipalities here, that we will see that difference, and then the case will be made on its own.
Evaluation found that because so many more people were riding the bus, per rider boarding times went down dramatically, but travel times increased. And so it said that the suggestion was investments being made in infrastructure. I wonder what the city can do to improve travel times for riders, since that's a major goal of their city.
We came in on the 23 bus, and it was a sort of standard size bus instead of the double buses that the 28 route uses. And it was packed person to person, even at, I don't know what time, even a little before noon on a weekday. And so the demand is there, right? When we take down barriers for affordability, people use the service. And so we definitely need to see investments in service and reliability along with investments in affordability. One reason why we picked these particular bus routes is that all three intersect with important design changes on our roadways that also improve service and reliability. So whether it's the dedicated bus lane on Columbus Ave that will speed up service with that center running bus lane, or the planned improvements that are still in community process along Blue Hill Ave with funding from our RAISE grant, $15 million from our federal champions, making that possible so that we can make the roadway changes to speed up service. And then we'll continue talking with the MBTA about the need for increased service and routes too. But every bit that we speed up that bus does move it along faster. We do need to plan for the increase in demand. Do you want to add anything on this?
All three of you can just give me 1 minute on this Supreme Court hearing that's going on today with Ketanji Brown Jackson and the historic aspect of it.
Okay. I'll just say for my part, I haven't been following I haven't gotten the chance to watch any of the questions that are being asked today or anything like that, but just knowing that this incredible leader and woman and trailblazer, barrier breaker, is seated there, about to step into this role, making decisions that impact every single one of our communities. It's incredibly inspiring. It's breathtaking, and I know what a difference it makes. We've seen in Boston what a difference it makes when we bring experiences and change the possibilities for our residents with representation, with the talent and the qualifications and the connection to our communities. And so I am eager to make sure that for whatever we could do, loud support, that we can help put on the pressure for this to happen. And this all sits at our federal level, but this is such a great day that we are here and looking forward to, fingers crossed, seeing this move forward.
So just quickly on that, Allison, growing up here in the city of Boston, just like Alberto never thought there would be free public transit, many of us thought there would never be a black mayor for this city. And we saw all the ways, having our first black mayor, having our first elected woman mayor, who is Asian American, how representation matters. And having her sit on the Supreme Court is going to be so important, so significant because of that lived experience that she brings to the court. And it is important that we make sure in every aspect of American life that we have representation, not just on the Supreme Court, in our boardrooms, in corporations, on elected in Congress, in City Hall. It is so incredibly important. So I am excited. I will certainly join and do whatever possible to make sure that she is confirmed. And this means so much, not just to little girls who are watching or little black girls who are watching, but to every single American in our country. So that's my thought on it. Congresswoman?
First and foremost, I just want to acknowledge and say how much I appreciate that President Biden heeded our calls and kept his word that he would nominate the first black woman to the Supreme Court. In the history of the courts, there have been 115 justices. 100 of them have been white men. Only 3 have been, I think those numbers are right. I'm gonna mess a little off, but the point is, there've been 3. There have been three justices of color. We've had overwhelmingly white men serving on the courts, and her nomination, and we'll do everything in our power to ensure that she is confirmed, is very timely, because what we have seen is an imbalanced Supreme Court, and we've seen it be extreme, far right, imbalanced, and not fair, and quite honestly obstructing the will of the people. When it comes to voting rights, when it comes to reproductive freedom, when it comes to housing rights, it has obstructed the will of the people. And so this nomination is timely. She is overqualified, and this confirmation is overdue. And I do take a note of personal pride in that I represent the Massachusetts 7th, and she is also a distinguished Harvard alum. And then furthermore, just to speak to the power of representation, the Massachusetts State Legislature last week became the 15th state in the country to pass the Crown Act to ban race-based hair discrimination. My bill, the federal version of that, the Crown Act, passed the House the next day. And the fact that not only are we very close to confirming the first black woman, but that she is wearing her hair in a protective style called sister locks, is also incredibly an important and powerful statement. But it's important that we restore balance to the courts, and she would be our first public defender to serve on the Supreme Court. And she has a long record of upholding and advancing civil rights, racial justice, and I think that is especially important as well.
We're at Betsy this morning. I'd actually like to hear what all three of you think about receivership of
Public transportation is public good. Thank you, Congressman Janey. Congressman. Thank you. Good to see you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.